Meeting to order. So this is the meeting of the regular monthly meeting of the Pacheco Stormwater District. This is the February 26th, 2024 meeting. Welcome, everyone. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Oh yeah. Okay. Where is it, actually? Okay, all right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first thing that we will start with is public comment. This is on any subject that is not already on the agenda. So, Victor, I think you have something to read first.
The Pacheco Stormwater District welcomes your comments. Each individual speaker would be limited to a presentation total of 3 minutes. When addressing the trustees via Zoom, phone, or in chambers, please state your name and county in which you reside for the record. Please address the trustees as a whole through the chair. If participating via Zoom, select the Participants tab and click the Raise Hand icon. If you're using a phone, please press star 9 to raise your hand. When your turn arrives, you will hear that you have been unmuted. If you're participating in person at the chambers, please complete a speaker card identifying the item on which you wish to speak, and provide your completed card to the clerk prior to consideration of the item. Speaker cards are available on the table at the entrance to the chambers. There appears to be no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. And as usual, there are 2 items, the acknowledgement of the certificate of posting and the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
I motion that we approve the minutes for January 22nd and the acknowledgement of certificate of posting.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. We'll now move on to the regular agenda. First up, 5.1 is, as always, an update regarding debris removal and levee repair. Take it away, Steve.
All right. Good evening, trustees. Steve Lute, Public Works Administrator for the County of San Benito. So, update regarding debris removal and levee repair. So, for those folks that aren't aware, the 5 large debris piles have been removed and placed outside of the levee. So, the final step with those piles is to just essentially burn them in their current locations. And we've reached out to CAL FIRE and the fire department. CAL FIRE said, you don't need a permit from us. You can just coordinate with the Hollister Fire Department. So we talked to the fire department, and they basically said that the district will be allowed to burn the piles as soon as they're dry. We'll have to coordinate with them. I'll talk a little bit more about the burn permits when I talk about the FEMA applications, but that's the status regarding the burn or the debris piles. They just need to be burned, essentially. And jumping over to the levee repairs. So there's originally 4 locations of levees that were damaged. 2 of the 4 have been repaired with structural fill. The third one, I wouldn't necessarily call it a levee breach, but it's the levee topped over for an area of about 10 feet, and it's about this high, like 10 feet, so it just kind of spilled over. But it needs to be repaired because it washed out some debris behind there, so that area, as well as the larger area that's washed out let's see, it was about 20 feet, and it's been backfilled maybe 12 feet, so there's about 8 feet left to fill. The fill is arriving tomorrow for both those areas, and we have a geotech that we've met that's on board that's going to be observing the repairs. And so it sounds like they're actually going to start tomorrow around 11 o'clock, and that's a very good thing. So I will pause there. So that's the status of the debris removal and the levee repairs.
Are there any questions from the trustees?
Can you clarify where that one is being worked on? Where is it at?
So
Location.
the large one and then the small one right next to it, it's over near the San Felipe Bridge on the south side. The washout occurred, I would say, about 150 feet downstream on the south side. That's the larger 8-foot. Well, it starts at 4 feet and then it goes up to about 8 feet. So maybe it averages 6 or 7. It's approximately 200 feet long. So that's on the south side. And then you go approximately 200 feet downstream from there for that smaller area that flooded over. Those are the two locations essentially. So you bet.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
If you would like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom use the raise hand icon featuring by dialing *9. There appears to be no public comment at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Steve. We'll move on then to 5.2, and that is an update on the status of the FEMA applications.
Okay, so the FEMA applications are kind of broken into two separate categories. There's the debris removal application, and there's the levee repair application. So for the debris removal application, we've gone through all the steps, entered all the information, and we're at a point where FEMA's asked us to upload the burn permits and just put in a time frame on the permit. So I'm working with the fire department to say, okay, we will burn the piles of debris between March 1st and May 1st. And the reason that it's not necessarily the time frame that's important, but our FEMA rep thinks it's going to be helpful just to upload those permits so that it goes to the environmentalist phase, and therefore once it's in their court, if they don't have any questions, then we can actually move forward with possibly getting reimbursement to the district. So so that's where it's at, because typically they want the debris piles burned and pictures of the ash and things like that, I guess is what we were told. Knowing that that won't happen for a couple months, the suggestion was to just upload the permits, and hopefully that can get us to the next phase. But we've pretty much uploaded all the other documents that we were supposed to upload at this point to FEMA, and that's where we're at for the debris piles. Regarding the okay, I'll pause there. Was there a question? No. Okay. And then regarding the levee repairs, we've actually uploaded all the documents on the levee repairs, and we're just waiting for environmental folks at FEMA to provide some guidance in that respect. And once the environmental folks provide that guidance or just say we've done everything we should, then we can also get to the request for reimbursement phase on the debris or the levee repairs. So there's not much more we can do. We've just been reaching out to, well, our rep has reached out to they call it EHP. It's the FEMA Environmental, and we're just waiting for their response. There's only a couple of them that are working on this event, I think, at this point, and there's still a bunch of projects that are in different phases through Monterey County and Santa Cruz County and our county, and so there's, I think, just a couple of FEMA environmental folks that are trying to get through all those different projects and making comments. But we've been waiting, I think, since October for those comments. And that's where we're at with the FEMA applications. So I'll pause there for questions. So.
Well, thank you, Steve. We're certainly in a better position than we were just
Yes.
a couple of months ago.
Yes, we are.
So I think I remember asking the FEMA rep in one of the meetings that I sat in how long these environmental reviews usually take, and it sounded like it could be anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months. Or
Correct. There's also other county projects in a similar situation because there's just not a lot of FEMA environmental staff. Yes, available. So that's correct. So we just kind of wait.
but it's looking positive.
It is.
Yeah.
It is looking positive.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the trustees? Is there any public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon featuring by dialing *9. There appears to be no public comment at this moment.
Okay, then we will move on to 5.3. And this is an update on tree removal near the Lover's Lane Bridge. So we've been talking about this for the last few months as well. There are some trees that could come down. And then there were some trees that did come down, but I'll let Steve explain what's going on.
Yeah, that's correct. And so, unfortunately, so there was a row of 8 to 10 trees on the south levee downstream of the Lover's Lane Bridge, and they've grown over the years, and in a good way, they survived last year's storms. However, the concern is, are they going to survive again? Well, unfortunately, we had some pretty high winds a few weeks ago. And as Trustee Michelle just said, a few of those trees did actually fall over into the creek, and they actually took a part of the levee with them. And so I'll show you a few pictures here of kind of how it looked. It's hard to tell with pictures because it's a big area, but I put a few up here. So you can see the tree roots there, and how the embankment's kind of gone into the creek with them. Here's a kind of a zoomed out picture of how they've fallen into the creek and how a little bit of debris started to accumulate around them during the last set of storms. Here's a close-up of some just the smaller debris that as they started to remove the larger debris. And then they have a picture of the excavator and how they were doing that. It's a little blurry. Apologies for that picture. And then after the cleanup, the team got 80% of what was there out of the creek and on the creek bank. And so, unfortunately, as we all discussed, it would be great if we had just been able to remove those trees. And I don't know, there's dozens of trees along the levee that I've seen are kind of a similar situation. These are, definitely more of the precarious locations and sizes of trees in this one location. But until, there's an emergency that's could affect life safety of the residents, of our county, we can't act. And so because I went to the site and I said, if we don't remove these trees, the levee could continue to erode and undermine, and some bad things would happen. So we just secured some county funds to be able to make this small cleanup happen, and it did. And so there's still more work to do. We had a geotechnical engineer come out. He wants to build a sheet pile wall and do all kinds of good engineering things that are going to take a while, and they can't really be done right now with the creek, at this level. But maybe if we can get some funding in the spring or summer when things dry out and the creek comes down a little bit, we'll be able to do some more permanent things. I would recommend somehow, some way that we get some big riprap and place it in this area to stabilize the bank. And I know there's an item later for, you know, the county to consider other uses of the funds that were loaned to the district. So that's a good thing. A request to modify loan agreement, which I guess is the next item actually. So if that loan agreement is modified, so there's some more flexibility for the district, because there's going to be some funds left over. I think it's $300,000 or $400,000 after the levee repairs are finished. I'd recommend, and I don't know the cost, call it $50,000 to put some big riprap boulders here to kind of stabilize the bank until we get through the rainy season. So, and there's actually a couple more trees that could be removed as well. But yeah, so creek seems to be flowing pretty well. Hopefully we don't get any big storms in the future, and I think fingers crossed things should be okay, and we can do some more work in the springtime. But that's the status of this location. So I'll pause for questions.
Thanks, Steve. Are there any questions from the trustees?
I have a question, Steve. I know that we see the pictures, the place that you guys clean, but that one is an example about the situation that we have in the creek, because I know it's more trees, they're ready to fall down, and we're going to continue to have the same problem. So I think so, see, we try to prevent those trees to fall in, it's going to be cheaper than they pull it out of the creek later when they're already down.
I concur. And perhaps if the county and the district come to an agreement on the next board item to have more flexibility to use for the funding of that situation, then I concur. It's better to be proactive and get the trees cut now than to wait till they fall over. Absolutely. The tricky part for the county is we don't just have funds to just tree trim on private property. We can react to emergencies and do things, which I know is not the best way to have things occur, but that's the way funds can get utilized sometimes. And there is one tree next to the bridge that I'm going to meet with a tree arborist this week, ideally, that is about where our right-of-way is. And so within our right-of-way, we can do things. And so I'm going to remove that tree by the bridge. But when it comes to private property and private creeks and things, unfortunately, the county has to be more reactive than proactive. But I agree with what you're saying.
Is there any public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon feature by dialing *9. There appears to be no public comment at this moment.
Hello, my name is Lucinda Flora, and this area is basically near my home, and so my home is right near this spot, and so it's in a critical, I think, situation for me and our family. There is a tree, and I think we talked about it, I just wanted to speak about it in public, that there is a tree that is actually leaning quite steeply. And there's quite a few trees that are doing this, but one of them right now is quite a bit. And so I would consider that an emergency, because the angle that it's at and the amount of water that is going now flowing to it is actually eroding it more and more. Because the other side, this is half, what you're seeing here on this picture is half of the creek is flowing now because they removed the debris. The other half of the creek is starting to pile up with debris because the trees have not been removed from the center of the creek. And so they're starting to get debris. So all the water is coming on to the south side of the levee, which is where my property is at, where my house is at. And So that tree that dirt keeps being eroded away. And so it's starting to lean further and further. And because it's about 100 feet or more tall, it's pretty heavy. It's a pretty big tree and it's dead. So it's falling down. So I really would consider that an emergency, because if the other trees already fell down, this is near that point of critical leaning. So I would think if there's a lot more water coming in the next storm, that it will fall. And if it does fall, it is actually higher up on my creek bed, on my levee, and so it'll chunk out a big amount, and it's already getting narrower and narrower. So if it breaches, it's going to flow out to your property, and now that way out through my house, the other house where my daughters are living in, the barn is just going to go. So anyway, so I'm very, very concerned. I think I sent an email to you and to everybody about it, my concerns. It's a very scary situation. And so I really like to see if that can get elevated to emergency to remove that tree, at least that one, if not maybe a couple other ones, because it's just, we're almost over, but it's not over yet on the storms. Thank you.
Would you like to respond, Steve?
Sure. Yeah, when I meet with the arborists and the tree team, hopefully this week is what he said. He's going to try to meet us. They're doing a lot of tree things right now, but I'll go look at that additional tree, and I think I know the one that the resident mentioned. And if has similar concerns, he calls it an emergency as, an arborist, making a judgment, then we'll try to get that one removed as well as the one near the bridge. So it's yes. So yeah, we'll take a look at it and noting that could be an urgent situation as well.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
There appears to be no additional public comment.
Okay, then we will move on to the next agenda item, which is related, actually, to this subject. And that is to consider requesting a modification of our agreement with the county. So just as a way of review, we were able to do the repairs and the debris cleanup that we did only because the county loaned us the money. And the only reason the county loaned us the money is because we had filed these FEMA applications, and we promised to reimburse the county with the money that we got from FEMA, which we haven't gotten yet, but as we were saying earlier, we're in a better position now. The work that we applied for the FEMA application for, the trees that were just discussed, these trees near the Lover's Lane Bridge, that work was not part of the FEMA applications. So we are not going to be reimbursed for any of that. But and since we don't have any other money other than we have a modest amount, right, in an account, but not enough to cover all the repairs, and then even if we spent it, we wouldn't have it anymore if we spent it on these repairs. So the only option that I can see if we want to do further work in this area with these trees is to ask the county if we can use the extra money that they loaned us, because what they loaned us is actually more than what we spent. So that is what this agenda item is about. And I'll let Steve come up and explain. Well, I know how much the county gave us, or loaned us, which was 1.6 million. And I'll have Steve explain what we've spent and what he expects that we will have left over.
Okay, so with the contracts that are out and the money that's been spent, the maximum that would be spent of the 1.6 million is about 1.3 million. I think it's actually going to be slightly less than that because one of the contractors didn't use all of their funding when they were removing debris piles number 2 and number 3. So I'm guesstimating that the district will have about $350,000 remaining when the work's been completed, so, of the 1.6 million.
So Steve, I have a couple of questions. One is, do you have any idea the work that we talked about with removing some trees and installing the riprap, I guess?
Just big rocks, basically.
Yeah. Do you have any idea? I know that you don't have any quotes or estimates, but do you have any idea how much that might cost?
So I'd guess it would be somewhere between 60 and maybe 100,000, depending how much riprap we installed and purchased for the district. So I don't think it'd be more than $100,000.
And that would take care of the trees that
So that would, if we don't remove that one tree, there's that tree, there's probably another 3 or 4 that could be removed. So to do the 4 trees plus riprap, you're probably going to be getting close to $100K, plus or minus $100,000.
Okay. And because obviously, I mean, we don't have a way of paying the county back, so basically we'd be asking the county to give us this money, I guess. Are you able to justify this? I mean, we would need you to be able to say this really needs to be done, or we could have even more serious problems moving forward. So would you be able to do that?
I would make that statement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question I had is, of course, this is a problem area. We've been talking about it for months now. Are there other areas that could be as problematic?
Yeah, as the resident on that corner just mentioned, one of the big problems is the northerly half of the creek, for different reasons, just without anything anybody's done recently, is not flowing as well. So all the water's flowing along the south portion of the levees, and so therefore it's eroding away some more. I mean, I think we're all looking at trying to find some more funding for the creek in general, but the district could spend any amount of money it could possibly get from the grants whatsoever out there. Just got to hope for, nice dry spring and summer so we can get in there and make some progress. Hopefully we obtain some funding, but yeah, I mean, there's parts of the creek a little bit upstream of San Felipe Road itself, outside of Pacheco Stormwater District. There's a couple areas downstream that, weren't as bad as the debris piles we removed previously, but like we said, the creek's not flowing great on the north side of the levee right now, or the northern part of the levee. So, yes, there's many improvements that could be implemented. So.
Yeah, I mean, the creek flows behind our house also. And I think we've been saved by the fact that the levee on the other side from where our house is lower. So when it floods, it usually floods back there, which is, there's nothing back there really. But we have trees growing in the middle. I mean, it's flowing, but there's like a little forest down there. So
yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, any other questions from the trustees?
So I was under the impression that when we asked for the 1.6, that was also what FEMA was going to give us, so it would be just covering it just straight across that way? No?
That's correct. That's what we estimated the cost of the submittals we'd made to FEMA would be about 1.6, but it's not going to cost quite that much. So, if that makes sense. So, the debris piles that we removed and the levee repairs, we estimated 6 months ago, approximately, that would cost, or maybe it was 4 or 5 months ago, it would be 1.6 million. Well, the prices from the contractors have come in a little bit less than that, so there's going to be some leftover funding, if that makes sense. So we're not going to spend as much as we thought. So.
But we still have to pay the 1.6. And if FEMA gives us whatever amount we spent, we still have to pay the, let's say the 0.6, for example. What if the expenditure was 1 million?
Okay.
And the 0.6, it's what the county loaned us. But if FEMA says, oh, you know, if you guys covered it with 1 million, that's fine, but yet we still have that 0.6 that we owe the county, but I thought we were just gonna get that 1.6 exactly from FEMA, and that way we could just, boom, give it back over to the county, straight across.
Right.
Without having to have any discrepancy.
There wouldn't be any
in-
deltas. Yeah, but if we don't spend it, FEMA won't, like, we can't bill, if the question is, could we bill 1.6 to FEMA? They actually ask for invoices and
Mhm.
backup and things, so if we only spend 1.3, that's all they're gonna give us, the max. I mean, that's if the state gives us some too, so, yeah, we can only be reimbursed from FEMA for the work that's performed.
Yeah.
So if there's leftover money, that's just the money remaining in the loan. So that's correct.
And to be clear, we'd be asking them to rewrite the loan to say that we'd only have to pay back, that we could use that extra money for these other repairs, but that we wouldn't have to pay it back. That's essentially what we'd be asking.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Is there any public comment?
If you would like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon feature by dialing *9. There appears to be no public comment at this moment.
Okay, well, is there some discussion then about this? I guess the major disadvantage of doing this is that we'd be asking the county. So they could say no, and then we wouldn't get it. Is there any risk to asking? Do we damage our credibility with the county if we do that? Like if we needed money later, I guess. That's another consideration. Okay, well, because I don't know where else we're gonna get the money right now. I mean, we're looking at long-term sources of funding, right? We're looking at other grant opportunities, but all of this stuff, is we have to submit applications. We have to identify grants that we would qualify for. We have to submit applications. We have to then, wait to be approved, and we may not be approved, and so it's we also could talk about tax assessments. That's a discussion that we could have as well, but again, that would need to be approved by the voters, is my understanding, and, you know, that's a lengthy process, and then it might not be approved. So, you know, I mean, we could either ask now, for this extra money, or we could wait and ask later. But, you know, if we're trying to do preventative stuff, then there could be further effects if we wait, right? You just made that point a little earlier.
I feel like, yeah, we should just ask for a modification on that loan then, and try and see if we can probably use most of those funds into fixing the creek. I know we fixed the damages that were caused the floods, but there's a lot more out there that can be future risks for more flooding, even though those areas have been fixed. It's like trees that are growing right in the middle of the whole entire creek, and there's probably more debris piles piling up somewhere else. Thinning out of the levees, there's a lot of that too. It's not just the ones that got busted, but I know there's one area in my property where it's very thin. And we could probably just go all along that whole area for the district, looking at it that way. Because we need to fix right now so that it doesn't happen again in the future.
Okay, well, okay, maybe, is there any more discussion, or should we take a vote? Okay, I think maybe we're ready for a vote. Sean, is it, the way that I worded it here, is that good, or?
The resolution can be stated. It doesn't have to be written necessarily. It can be stated.
Okay, all right.
But you might want to define what you're doing here exactly. Is the intention to use a certain portion of the remainder for this work?
Yes.
Is there a certain amount you're gonna request? Is there?
All of it? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. We could certainly spend all of it. That's not a problem. I mean, we could ask, well, I suppose we could ask for the authorization to use up to the amount. Maybe that would be better. Maybe we should use state a dollar amount. Maybe we'd be more likely to get an approval if we had a specific dollar amount. Okay, that's a good suggestion. There's a public comment. Lucinda, come.
Hello, my name is Lucinda again. I think we're in an active winter time right now, so I think it behooves the district to act now, because this is the time where people are listening, and it would be best if you do it now than later, because there's a lot of people listening to you, and it's a critical moment. So I think you would get your best chance of getting it approved, in my opinion. So I would encourage to, to go ahead and do this and ask for the monies now, and to be very active as board to go and talk to other people that are things that are happening in our district, like people bringing up levees or bringing up their property and dumping dirt and creating problems in the water district. And I really recommend that, you guys see it, you guys live there, to actively be part of trying to say, you can't do this. We're in a, see what's happening. I don't know if that's been done. There's a few, I've seen trucks dumping dirt back in the property, behind my property. There's property over on Lover's Lane. People are dumping dirt there too, raising their land. There's a big house that got their property elevated quite a bit. So now Lover's Lane, every time there's a storm, there's like a lot of water going across the road, causing potholes. So anyway, certain things like this is a good time to be very active in our water district, especially when the winter is happening, and we can get more active response from the people that we need help from. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Was there other public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
Okay.
Would we want to attach this to maybe certain things that are deemed an emergency rather than long-term sort of fixes, that sort of thing?
Okay, Steve, well,
I think that the County Board of Supervisors would be more amenable to using, up to the 1.6 million if it was, for urgent situations, like the one we've been discussing. And, again, when you have an arborist or a geotechnical engineer out there, it's not just my opinion or the property owner's opinion, but another opinion of a professional with us saying, this would be a good situation to prevent further damage, and frame it that way. And I think it's a good suggestion by Sean, and not so much of a maintenance type of activity with the remaining funds. So I think that's a very good suggestion.
I agree. So then what should the approach be? I mean, should we just go, we've been looking at this one area, right? Should we just focus on that? Should we try to get some experts to look at other portions of the creek? Should we take a piecemeal approach? Like, ask for some money now and then go back later?
Considering, the district will have plus or minus 300,000 remaining, it probably makes sense just to say, we're asking for permission to utilize the remaining funds for urgent situations, as deemed by site walks and arborists or geotechnical engineers. And obviously we'd focus on this one location first, and I'd just frame it that way, perhaps. That's my suggestion.
And then I would add a cap of some sort. I wouldn't necessarily think to use the entire remainder. The idea behind that was that it was going to be tied to the FEMA, so I think there might be reticence to just grant the remainder of what is left. Yeah.
Okay. Although if we're going to use $100,000 in this one area, then I don't know how much. I guess we could. Well, I guess that still leaves $250. So, I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
I don't know. I'm not the trustee, so that's where the tough decisions are made, up there where you three are. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, we could ask for all of it, and then they could say no. They could come back and say, we'll give you part of it. I don't know. I don't know what the best thing. Of course, we were told that they wouldn't approve this to begin with. I remember there was a speaker that came to the meeting right before the Board of Supervisors approved this loan and said, oh, they're never going to give it to you. And they did. They gave us the whole $1.6 million. So, well, any ideas? Trustees, do we ask for $350? Do we ask for less? Yeah, I guess they can always come back and say no, or we can give you part of it. but I think that we would have to justify, but it's true, I think we would have to justify it by an urgent situation, right? And so you would be the person, Steve, that would be designating what's, well, based on expert.
Yeah, for example, we were out there with the geotech, and the property owner was with us, and the geotech agreed specifically that riprap would help the situation, and won't guarantee anything, but would definitely help. We did not have an arborist with us, but like I said, I'll bring them out there as soon as they'll meet me out there and look at this other tree that was mentioned, and look at the root system and the levee, and make a judgment and go from there.
Do
so-
you have, I guess we would need to contact other property owners if we wanted to look at other areas of the creek. I mean, we have easements, but.
Right. The way that it works, the way the easements are framed, the district has permission to enter the property for creek maintenance activities. However, whenever we do that as a county, we always try to notify the property owner first, unless it is an actual emergency. But, short of that, we reach out to the property owners to let them know we're going to be on the property for a lot of different reasons. It's a good idea. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to vote on this? Okay. I think I will go ahead and make the motion so that I can make sure that we get it right. So, I move that we request a modification of the loan agreement from San Benito County for authorization to use up to the let's say $350,000 remaining from the $1.6 million that they loaned us, that we ask for authorization to utilize those funds to make urgent repairs to the levees and to prevent further flooding. Okay. Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. All right. Now we will move on. Oh, more fun stuff. Okay. So this next item has to do with insurance. So we've been talking about this for many months now. And the latest is, so I've been talking with a broker and trying to get some quotes. And basically I went to two different sources. One was a local broker who shopped it out to various insurance companies. And she came back with one quote for me. Well, it was basically one quote for director's liability insurance, not general liability insurance, but director's liability. No one was willing to write a policy for general liability for us. It was, they just thought it was too much of a risk. So the only quote I got was for director's liability, and we'll talk about in a minute what that is. Then I submitted an application through the California Special Districts Association, of which we were a member. I haven't renewed our membership for 2024, but I did submit an application, and I have not gotten a formal decision on that, but I did hear from my contact there that the underwriters were concerned because the cost of the insurance was going to be more than our annual income, and they didn't like that. So it sounded like they were going to refuse us. So basically, at this point, we have one quote for director's liability insurance. And I believe it is for about $1,700 a year, if I'm not mistaken. But I sent it to Sean to take a look at it, and so I'm going to let him just discuss the policy very briefly, what it would cover, and then we can have a discussion about whether we want to purchase this.
So as you stated, it is a very basic sort of coverage. It's essentially errors and omissions coverage. So things done by the trustees while performing acts as a trustee would be covered. If you were acting outside of your capacity as a trustee, those would not be covered. And if the actions were performed while being a trustee and they were willful misconduct, meaning you did it on purpose, essentially, then those would not be covered either. So essentially, like I said, it's errors and omissions coverage. There's also coverage for, what do they call it? For
Crisis management?
crisis management. Yeah, if there's some sort of, major event that happened to the.
To hire someone to handle our press for us or something.
Essentially, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's, extremely unlikely to happen, but it was
Yeah.
also included.
Yeah.
The other portion that they carved out was if you had employees, they were gonna carve that out anyway. You don't have employees, so that wasn't gonna be applicable. So you're essentially left with errors and omissions coverage. That's what that is.
Okay, and just to sort of flesh out errors and omissions, like let's take an example. Suppose we made a decision about repairing a portion of the levee, and because we did that, it had the unintended consequence of flooding someone or directing the water more towards someone else's property. And so they were injured. So would this insurance, and then that person decided to sue the Pacheco Stormwater District or the trustees, because we made that decision. Would this policy cover a situation like that?
It would. That said, in these contracts we're entering into, they have indemnification provisions, which essentially covers the work performed by those contractors. So it would maybe backstop that if we also have those contractors have insurance, and that insurance should cover the work they're performing. So theoretically, if the contractor performs work, there's an error on their part, they would have to indemnify us, and then their insurance would cover that amount. That's the idea. But this coverage, like you said, it would backstop that if that somehow didn't cover it, or somehow an argument was made that they, weren't liable for that or responsible for that, then potentially it could cover you, yeah.
Okay, and just to further make sure we understand, so even without any insurance coverage, the trustees, when acting in their capacity as trustees, are not individually liable as individuals.
Correct.
Right?
If you're acting on behalf of the body, then the body is the one that's liable.
Okay. And right now, we have about $50,000 in an account, right? So that's, if someone sued the Pacheco Stormwater District, that's basically all that they could get.
That's all they could get. They could, you could get damages assessed against you that were in addition to that, but they would have a very difficult time collecting it from you because you don't have those assets. And maybe as they rolled in, they could attach those and collect those, and it would be onerous and a bad situation to be in. But you're right, yeah, with respect to the assets you have, there's limited risk there, yeah, limited exposure. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned there are some exclusions in the policy, right? But did you see anything that was sort of glaring in terms of?
No, it's the typical sort of things. It's essentially willful misconduct. You can't, act as if you're acting on behalf of the body and actually be doing something on behalf of yourself, doing it maliciously, doing those sort of things. Those are outside of the body and outside of the protections that would afford you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, questions? Is there any public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon feature by dialing *9. There appears to be no public comment at this moment.
Okay. All right, so I guess the idea is, I mean, we have one option here, I want to make sure that I'm right on the cost. Thought I saw that it was,
The cost was $17.45. I'm
Okay.
not actually sure what term that, I assume that's annually. I'm not totally sure. And the coverage was up to $1 million.
okay, thank you. Was there a deductible? I'm trying to remember. There may have been a deductible, but I don't think it would have been that much. So basically 1,700, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's annual. So, is there further discussion about this? I mean, we would have to use, obviously, we would have to use the money that we have in our account to purchase it. It's slightly more than our annual income. Our annual income is, my understanding is our annual income is $1,300. So this would be a few $100s more than that. So the question is, do we need this? It's not general liability, but our contractors generally have that. So as Sean said, this would be in addition to that. I'm trying to imagine a situation where, I mean, you said, Sean, that if the contractors made a mistake, then their insurance would cover it, and also us, because they indemnify us. But is there a situation where maybe they didn't make a mistake, they did exactly what they were supposed to do, or what we asked them to do, and yet it had an adverse effect on someone else? Would that leave us uncovered in that situation?
Sure, that would.
Yeah.
You are relying on them as experts, though, generally.
Oh,
So
yeah. I see what you're saying.
but yeah, theoretically they could, yeah, yeah, I can see that happening, yeah, potentially.
Okay, well, so what do we do? Is there a motion to purchase this? Do we want to defer this? This quote is only good through the end of February. I could get it extended if we wanted. I mean, we could do this now, we could do it in the future.
So we have to have this.
No, we don't have to have this. We do not have to have this. It's just extra protection. But as Sean said, I mean, we're not individually liable unless we do something, you know, outside of the scope of what we're supposed to be doing as trustees. We could be liable as a district, in which case they could take all our money, which we don't have much anyway. So, and we do have, you know, since we are using contractors, they all have insurance that is supposed to cover us.
Yeah, I kind of want to wait too.
Okay.
I know that this 1745 doesn't hold for a long time, but gives us a little bit more chance to study it a little bit more, and maybe something else might come along the way.
Like
Because
more
if
money.
yeah,
Like
because
like
if
an
we're
income.
trying to- yeah, if
Yeah.
we're trying to pay 1745,
Yeah,
not even having that in
Yeah.
the pocket, so it's like,
yeah. Okay. So Sean, do we have to take a vote, since it says here we were gonna take a vote?
You could just continue the item, or yeah, defer it. You don't have to take a vote necessarily, no. But now you've discussed it, I would say, actually, yeah, probably make a vote.
Okay,
Make a
well, we
motion
could,
on it.
we could
Yeah.
take a vote.
Okay.
We've never voted no on anything, but we could do that. Right? Okay, all right. Okay, so, you can vote no on your own motion, right? Can you?
I don't think you can actually, which brings up a good point. Yeah, I don't. Maybe you do just. Well, yeah. So generally, the chair actually doesn't make motions.
That's right, I know,
So
yeah.
one of the other members
So if
could
some,
potentially
if
make
no
a
one,
motion.
if no one wants to move, then what happens? It just kind of dies?
I don't think I've ever seen that happen before, where it just sort of nothing happened there.
Okay, well, but I mean, if
No,
no one
right over
wants
here.
to buy this insurance,
Right
and the
there.
chair.
Well, you make a motion to
Oh.
consider it in the future, that sort of thing.
Oh, I see, okay.
I was gonna say, can't you also, make a motion and then it does not pass by 3-0 as well?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You
okay.
could make the motion and then not vote. Yeah, right. You could do it that way too, I suppose.
What?
If I was you, I'd have someone that is not wanting to move forward with this item to make the motion, then the rest of the people can vote on it. Or the entire body can vote, right?
Okay,
Does that not make sense?
all right.
One of the members who does not want the insurance at this point would make the motion, and then the body would vote on it.
Oh, to not purchase, a motion to
Right.
not purchase the insurance. Oh,
Right.
okay, all right, okay,
Right.
there you go. We can do that.
Right.
All right,
Okay, well then,
okay.
let me go ahead and clarify that. I'd like to make a motion that we don't adopt the resolution of getting this liability and general insurance for the moment.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that takes care of that. All right. The next thing on the agenda is a discussion of options for community-led maintenance. So this was an idea that came up at the last meeting. The suggestion was, well, what if we, since it costs money to get contractors, and so far, we haven't had too much success with grant applications, although we haven't gotten too far into it. Would it be feasible to have the community come together and maintain the creek, maybe in a way that they used to do years ago, right, when the district was first formed? So one of the, I had a discussion with Grant Bryans about this, and I don't know, is Grant on Zoom?
I have Mike Shear.
Okay.
Not sure if that's the
Okay,
same
no,
person.
I think Grant is different, so it doesn't sound like he was able to make it to the meeting. But I ran this past Grant because he knows a lot of the history of what used to be done, and he's a farmer, and he's got some equipment of his own, and his first reaction was, you're never going to get insurance to run your own equipment, which is obvious, right? We couldn't get general liability insurance even when we told them we were using contractors. So that would be a big hurdle, right? And apparently the kind of equipment that we're talking about, the big excavators, apparently you need certifications and so forth to be able to operate them. But I'm going to let Steve maybe comment on that as well. What do you think about that, Steve?
Yeah, so specifically an excavator and backhoes, you don't need a license, you just need experience. And to rent them or to own them, well, to rent them you need coverage and insurance. But the only time you need a special Class A license are actually for large transport vehicles. So like large dump trucks and 10-wheelers. And long story short, someone that just has an experience on an excavator can operate an excavator. Now, you probably want some insurance, like contractors have insurance, so that if their operators do something that, you know, is damaging to a telephone pole or who knows what, there's insurance for that activity, so it covers that activity. Does that make sense? But
Yes.
yeah, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, I probably would like to, I was hoping that Grant could come because he had some ideas, but doesn't seem like was able to attend tonight. So I'm kind of inclined to sort of continue this discussion at another meeting. But do the trustees have any comments? Is there any public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon feature by dialing *9. There appears to be no public comment.
Okay. Well, then we'll come back to this topic at a later time. Okay, so the next thing is that earlier this month, on February 5th, to be exact, myself and Steve and Rochelle Beerley and Anthony Botello participated in a Zoom meeting with couple people from Valley Water. And what we were talking about, we approached them for a meeting to sort of see how we could collaborate in better maintaining the watershed, right? Sort of a more regional approach to this problem. And it turned out that it actually ended up being a discussion about that, but also mostly about the new dam that they have planned. And they had one of their experts, Ryan McCarter, who is basically in charge, I guess, of getting this dam built, and he gave us a little presentation, and it was very interesting. So I'm actually going to invite him to come and speak at one of our future meetings because I think it would be interesting. But basically, the bottom line is that they did a study, and they believe that if they can get this new dam built, which is much bigger than the current dam, much, much bigger, and will hold more water, will hold more of the runoff. They estimated that it will decrease, now, Steve, help me make sure I get this right, decrease the possibility of flooding by 46%? I know there was 46%, or decrease the amount of water. Now I'm not sure.
It was the latter, so it would decrease and hold back that volume of water that would flow into Pacheco Creek by up to 46%. So you had that number right. So yeah, and the size of the dam is 25 times larger than the existing Pacheco Pass Dam. So it's, like you said, it's quite a bit larger. So it was a good thing.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting conversation. As I said, I'm going to see if Ryan would be willing to give the same presentation to the trustees that he gave to us that day. And we also asked, whether Valley Water would be willing to collaborate with us in any way. And the representative there, so Valley Water is a big organization, and they have one representative that sort of covers the South County area. And he was there, and he seemed amenable to working with us, but what he said was, he could get us on the agenda for one of the Valley Water Board meetings. But he said, you have to work on your ask. What is your ask? So we need to think about that, about what we would ask them for. I don't think they would give us money because they're looking for money themselves, right, to build this dam. But since they have much more experience, they're much bigger, they have more staff, more resources available to them, I was thinking perhaps they'd be willing to partner with us on some of these grants that we're trying to apply for. Because their support, I mean, we need somebody's support, and that support could be invaluable. So that's what I was thinking, but we'll be discussing that more here or in maybe our advisory board meetings about how we can best utilize this potential new partnership or friendship or whatever with Valley Water. Is there any, did you have any other comments on that meeting, Steve?
No, I think one thing that came from the meeting, there's two groups that are challenging the construction of the dam. One of them is an environmental group, and well, I won't get into it, but a letter of support from this district would be helpful. The more letters of support that are provided, it helps with some of the folks that they're trying to stop the construction of the dam. And timing wise, so yeah, I think they have about a third of the funding. It's a $3 billion project. I think they've accumulated somewhere around $1 billion, and they're actually hoping to start construction in 2027 if they can find the funding and get through those hurdles of the groups that are challenging them. So they do want to move forward with the project, Valley Water, which used to be called San Clair Valley Water District. So yeah, that was the status. So.
Thank you for adding that, Steve. That's right. Yeah, that's another thing that we could potentially do, is we could sort of officially endorse this project for the new dam. But of course, before we do that, I'd like to have Ryan come out and give a presentation so you would know what this is all about. Okay, do the trustees have any comments or questions?
No.
Okay, is there any public comment?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon feature by dialing *9. It appears we have a public comment via Zoom. Rochelle Beerley, you have been muted.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to add to that an important takeaway from that meeting also was the director that we were dealing with for the district from Valley Water District mentioned that the clean out efforts that Santa Clara County has put forth on their waterways, you know, the small little forgotten waterways like ours, has really paid off, and he feels that they're reaping the benefits, you know, for this winter, for example. And it was just an encouraging bit of information from a large district, acknowledging that clean out does make a big difference. It pays off, and it's a worthy cause. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thanks, Rochelle. Is there any further public comment?
There appears to be no further public comment.
Okay, so that was just an update. So we'll be talking more about that in the future, I'm sure. Okay, then the next thing is update on publicity and outreach. I don't really have too much to say here. I don't think nothing has been done with the sign. Although I was given a suggestion, and that is by Mark, my husband, who was here last meeting and was going to be working on the sign idea. He said, well, you know, why don't you consider getting one of those electronic signs? He found one on eBay for $72. And I guess he said you can program it to operate just at certain times, right? It wouldn't be like necessarily going night and day. So it's not something that I normally associate with a rural area like Lover's Lane, an electronic sign. But I thought I would pass along that suggestion. So if anybody wants to comment on that or further discuss it.
I think I would probably shy away from having the electronic sign. I think more of a posting, having a plexi cover, that if something gets posted, it's behind the cover and it doesn't get damaged whether by any weather.
Okay.
I agree with that. Too much technology in Lover's Lane.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, is there any public comment on that?
If you'd like to make a comment in chambers, please provide a speaker card, and on Zoom, use the raise hand icon feature by dialing *9. It appears we have one public comment via Zoom. Rocher Beerley have been muted.
I wanted to ask, and this doesn't pertain to this, the electric sign idea, but regarding the outreach that we were doing, Michelle, with the texting, and reaching out to the board members ahead of the meeting, do you think we got any, increased awareness from that? And also, I do have the phone list. The district does have a phone list for the members. There's 60 members. If texting a message doesn't help, I mean, I'm not opposed to breaking it down in groups of 20 and making direct phone calls. I don't know how accurate the phone list is, but if it's all about outreach, it might be worthy of my time to invest in calling people. And I don't know if I'll have a language barrier, but that's also maybe an idea.
Yeah, thank you, Rochelle. That's a generous offer. But do we actually have phone numbers for everybody on that list?
Yes.
We do.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, no, but we do have, I don't know, maybe like 20 phone numbers. So I don't know, a third, a third of the membership, and those are the same numbers that we are currently texting and getting no responses to. So, I just thought, I could go the extra mile and make some direct calls. But yeah, it would help if we had more numbers. I don't know how we get those. Maybe a letter. Maybe we write a letter explaining our interest to further the outreach and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think that if they didn't respond to the text messages, then they probably are not interested in being involved. But what do other people think?
My question is like, I'm pretty sure my number is on that list and I've not received anything at all. No texts, no messages, no emails.
Right, that's true. Some of them might be landlines. Is there, Rochelle, did you send that out this month for this meeting?
Can you hear me still? I did not. I have to apologize for that one, but that slipped my mind and I did not send it out for the February meeting.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I sent it out for the December meeting. I think you sent it out then for the January meeting. I think we got a couple more people, but it was not a huge number of people. I was thinking actually, and I just didn't have the time this month, I was thinking about putting it on Nextdoor because there's been some discussion of the creek on the Nextdoor app. Yeah, KSBW was out, actually. Steve could talk about that. Do you want to talk about that at all, Steve?
I'll pass.
Okay, all right. But this KSBW was out on Lover's Lane Well, actually, I think they were at your, yeah. Do you want to talk about that at all?
I think so. It's Alicia. I can remember his last name. Is the one they very scared. So he contact my wife, and they decide to call the TV, and they explaining, what's going on and how everybody suffered in that area, and everybody's scared to happen again. So it's, I mean, it's bad, but they want the TV to be involved. I think it's one of the big reason they call the TV.
Yes. Well, I mean, it did air. I guess I didn't see it, but I guess there was a little bit blurb on KSBW about it, and Supervisor Gonzalez was there. So I don't know if it really had any effect beyond that. But anyway, what I was going to say was, I mean, I saw a whole discussion about this play out on the Nextdoor app. I didn't respond, but clearly there are people who post on the app that might be interested. So that would be pretty easy to post the meeting time, and even maybe the Zoom link. I don't know. But I don't know. But the question was the phone calls. I don't know. I don't know if people want to be called. But any comments? I think what I'd rather do is identify some people who, either because of where their property is situated, or because of their expertise, or because, I don't know, they have equipment or something, that we could draw them in because they would be helpful in solving our issue. I think I'd rather target it that way and reach out to people that way. But what do others think?
Yeah, that sounds like a good path to go, because that way you know who you can contact once we are in another, hopefully not in another situation like this. We know who to contact, what, equipment or anything like that. Like a telephone tag, it's like, hey, it's busted over in my area and it's heading towards yours or something. So we need to make sure that we communicate with each other within that district. And we need to know, I'm not sure. For me, I just barely found out that we are District 5.
Yeah. Yes.
So
we are now, we somehow went from, we went from District 1 to District 5. I think that must have been January 1 that happened, right?
okay.
But, yeah. Okay. Well, maybe, okay. That meeting when there were all those people at the county, back in February of 2023, that was in response to a letter, a mailing that the county did, right? Now, of course, everybody, it had flooded already, like 2 or 3 times. No, I guess only 2 at that point. And so it was really at the forefront of everybody's mind. So, but there were a lot of people there. We got a lot of people there. So maybe something like that is the best thing to do. I don't know, but that would cost a little bit of money. Do we want to consider a mailing? We could do it in English and Spanish. English on one side, Spanish on the other, or we could pass and talk about it next time.
Yeah, let's hold off then. Let's try and figure out how this would work best for us. Yeah, I'm thinking just sending out a mailing to everybody is, sometimes it's just gonna go straight to the garbage.
Yeah.
So I'd rather it not be that way. So let's try and move this subject to future agenda and probably come up with something for then.
I have additional public comment. For Sheriff Beerley, you have been unmuted.
If I could comment on Michelle's idea, which is the neighborhood watch group, is that what it's called? I think that would be our best bet, actually, because it does have a lot of, attendance on that organization. So I would recommend doing that, and if you want, do we have a page set up for that already, for the PSWD? I also wanted to ask, since we're on the topic of the members, and we're concerned about outreach, my question, I guess, is what do we, with all these members in our board, I mean, 60 plus, and we're a handful of people that are active in it, what's the point of having all the members in the district, A and B? Maybe we should talk about updating our list, our district members, because I did read somewhere in the bylaws or somewhere that the members can be adjusted. So maybe that's something to talk about too, but I guess also what we want to ask ourselves is what do we want what do we expect from our, from the members? What's the point of our outreach? But I would again go with that neighborhood group. Thank you.
Thanks, Rochelle. So the topic of expanding our boundaries actually will be on the next agenda. We've, Sean and I have been doing a little bit of work on that. We actually met with someone from LAFCO, but we won't get into that now. We'll save that for the next meeting. It's already 7:30. Okay, is there any other comment on this, on publicity or outreach for right now? No? Okay, so let's move on to future agenda items. I just mentioned one. Let's see, I could invite the guy from Valley Water to talk about the dam. What else?
That community-led maintenance
Oh,
with
right.
Brian.
Yeah. Okay, anything
The
else?
Publicity and outreach
Yeah.
activities.
Okay. That's almost always on the agenda, but I will keep it on there. Anything else? Okay, we have a public comment.
I know you, Lucinda Floric again. I know you spoke a little bit about the advisory committee. Can we put that on the agenda and what we talked about? And because I've been on that, and I'm trying to work on getting some grants so we can put that on there. The last time I emailed you about the UEI number, did you follow up on that?
Oh, right, because Joel's phone number was
Yes.
connected to it.
Yes, so
Yeah.
I tried to, apparently it's expiring, so I need that
Yeah,
number.
yeah, and I know, and we just got another email about that. So I thought that someone from the county was going to be looking into that because Joel's phone number, I mean, if you call it, I think it'll still say this is Joel Ellenwood, but we thought it was probably a county number.
Did you talk to someone? Because I didn't get an email. I don't know, maybe I missed it, because I was the one that requested you to help me out on that. Because if I lose it, I think we need to get another one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll chase that down. It
Okay.
was tied to Joel's contact information, so,
It was tied to his number, so it was a
Correct.
third-party authorization, so I couldn't reactivate it because it was sending a code number to that number.
yeah, well, Madison and I will work to remedy that. I'll say that, so, no
Okay,
problem.
so
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyway, so that was what I wanted to add, maybe on future agenda.
Yeah, okay, I've got it on here.
So we can have some progress.
Yeah, and we should, we're probably due for an advisory board meeting too, so.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Lucinda. Is there any other comment on this future
Yes.
agenda?
We have a public comment via Zoom. Rochelle Beerley, you have been unmuted. Rochelle, you have been unmuted.
Uh-oh.
Rochelle Beerley is having connection issues right now.
Okay, Rochelle, I'll tell you what, if you have future ideas for future agenda items, go ahead and email them to me. So, is there any other comment or from the public or the trustees? All right. Well, yeah, I'll give an update on that. Yeah. So. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Are we ready to adjourn?
I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Is there,
February 26th.
thank you. Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.